Last night, Katie Miller, wife of Stephen Miller, went on CNN's NewsNight with Abby Phillip and managed to spectacularly torpedo any media career she thought she was going to have. In the span of about 8 minutes, she defended extrajudicial killings, argued that platforming a Nazi sympathizer is the same as political commentary, and then played victim when called out. Let me show you exactly how someone who only cares about power, not principles, not ideas, just power, completely falls apart on live television. So the segment started with a discussion about Pete Hegseth and allegations of extrajudicial killings of Venezuelan fishermen. War crimes allegations against Trump's defense secretary pick. Katie Miller's response? She defended him. Full stop. No nuance, no, let's wait for the facts. Just pure defensive mode for someone accused of ordering the killing of civilians. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. The conversation shifted to Tucker Carlson platforming Nick Fuentes on his show. And for those who don't know, Nick Fuentes is a neo-Nazi who has openly and repeatedly praised Hitler and Nazi ideology. This isn't hyperbole. He's literally said on camera that he admires Hitler. Bakari sellers brought this up, calling Fuentes what he is, misogynistic and anti-Semitic. And Katie decided this was the hill she wanted to die on.
Because what they don't realize is that even a part of this MAGA base, the fact that we're even mentioning Nick Fuentes, he's 4'11", he's misogynistic, and he's anti-Semitic, but yet he is somebody who has the pulse of the Republican base right now. They need to excise him.
That's absolutely
Nick
false.
does not have the pulse of the Republican base. It's what Democrats want to say to divide the Republican base when that isn't true. But I want to go back to something really quick.
Tucker Carlson was just bowing in front of him.
Tucker Carlson hosted him on his show. He did not bow, nor did he kneel.
But you mentioned
Nick Fuentes.
You mentioned J.D. Vance, and he also did not denounce Tucker for hosting Nick Fuentes.
I mean, what are we talking about?
So what does it say that Vance didn't feel like part of what if he wants to lead the Republican Party, part of what he has to do is to police the boundaries of what's acceptable and what's not, and not say, hey, Tucker, unacceptable. Don't do that.
It's not up to you or myself to police speech in our country.
I mean, shouldn't it be up to J.D. Vance to say this is not part of our movement?
Are you okay? Are you okay with Nick Fuentes?
Here we go. I'm a Jew. Do you want to go there? And let's say this.
Yeah, I just asked the question. Was yes or no?
Yes, I'm okay. If Nick
Fuentes
wants to be able to speak freely in our country, he has every right to do so. Do I agree with his views? Do I think that they should become mainstream in our country?
Yes or no question.
Absolutely not.
But hold on.
I really want to go back to this for 1 second.
But this isn't about whether he can speak freely. It's about whether someone like Tucker Carlson, who is a very powerful force in the conservative movement.
You host people on your show all the time who call my husband and myself a Nazi. So how is that any different from Tucker Carlson going on Nick Fuentes having Tucker Carlson on his show? It's not different.
He's actually
anti-Semitic. He's anti-Semitic.
A Hitler admirer. Nick Fuentes is actually a Hitler admirer.
But he literally is not a good human being.
That is a different thing.
Excuse me, you have Jennifer Welch on your show very often, and you've never pushed back as she has called my husband a white nationalist.
Hold on.
That is no different than Nick Fuentes going on Tucker Carlson's show. It's not, and you should admit it.
Well, hold on. How is it anything similar? It's not remotely similar at all. Nick Fuentes sits around and says that he likes Hitler. How is that similar?
What does Katie have to do with it? What does she have to do with it? She has nothing to do with it. Literally nothing.
Scott, Katie is the person who just said to me that it is comparable to say that Nick Fuentes, who is literally a neo-Nazi, is the same as somebody, a liberal, who has an opinion who is not a neo-Nazi.
They are not
a hateful opinion.
The same.
How do you want? Excuse me. Let's go back to this point one more time.
But
Nick
Katie,
Fuentes can espouse an opinion on Tucker Carlson's show.
It is not the
and
same
he didn't push
thing.
back the same way you didn't push back when someone called someone in my family a Nazi.
Hold on a second.
It's not different.
Hold on a second.
It's not.
If someone comes on this show and says, I love Hitler and I admire what he did, they would never, first of all, I would never invite them on the show and they would never be invited back. So those two things are not the same thing.
But yet you've gone on Jennifer Welch's podcast. It's the same thing.
They are not the same thing.
What I find so,
but Katie, but hold on, Katie.
No, we can
do you believe that Jennifer Welch has a right to say something negative about your husband?
The same way Nick Fuentes has the right to say what he wants to say.
So you think that it's okay? Hold on. Do you think it is okay for Jennifer Welch? Is she allowed to say something negative about your husband?
Absolutely, and it's your job as a moderator to push back.
So that's the first thing.
It's the same way you're asking Tucker Carlson to push back against Nick Fuentes.
But hold on, Nick Fuentes.
Is it not different?
Nick Fuentes is espousing. He's not describing someone else as a Nazi. He is saying, I admire Nazis. You don't think that's a different thing?
Do you believe my husband's a Nazi? You allow someone on your show to say it.
Do you think those things are different or not?
I don't think anybody around
it's the same equitable comparison for Nick Fuentes to go with Tucker Carlson show as you to have people to have on your show.
You are making a comparison of two things that are not in any way the same. I acknowledge and listen, when
it's
people
happened more than once, Abby.
But hold on.
At one point, it's a common occurrence.
When people say their opinions, I don't endorse them, but I also am not responsible for their opinions.
So doesn't that apply to Tucker Carlson?
That is different from a person themselves describing themselves as a hate monger.
Is Tucker Carlson responsible for Nick Fuentes' opinions?
But hold on a second. I am also not a Republican Party official or a Democrat Party official.
Neither is
and
Tucker
so I'm
Carlson.
asking you about you as a Republican and who you think is the leader of your party, right?
Right
and
now it's President Donald Trump.
And I'm asking your opinion. Your opinion, okay? If you think that J.D. Vance is that person, do you think that he should be sitting at a table and nodding along with Nick Fuentes, yes or no?
I don't believe J.D. Vance has ever sat and nodded along with Nick Fuentes.
Do you think that Tucker Carlson? Do you think it is okay for J.D. Vance to think it's okay for Tucker Carlson to sit and nod along with?
I think it's okay for Tucker Carlson to have Nick Fuentes on the show the same way you have people on your show who espouse similar views.
Hold on, that's all I asked you, and we can just leave it at that because at the end of the day, that is what the Republican Party has to decide. Do they care whether or not someone who has a loud voice in their party is bringing on somebody who is encouraging neo-Nazism?
Wait,
and if you think that is
okay,
wait, if you think that's okay, let's go back to the murder of Charlie Kirk. Let's go back to the murder of Charlie Kirk, should we?
So we have to leave it at that.
Okay, so you just watched that. Let me break down what just happened. Katie Miller, a Jewish woman, just went on national television and argued that having a liberal commentator on CNN who criticized Stephen Miller is no different than Tucker Carlson giving airtime to someone who praises Hitler. Abby Phillip asked the obvious question, how is that similar? Nick Fuentes sits around and says he likes Hitler. And Katie, without missing a beat, insisted they're the same thing. It's not different, Abby, it's not. Think about the moral bankruptcy required to make that argument. On one side, political commentary criticizing a public official's policies. On the other side, a guy who literally says, I admire Adolf Hitler, being given a massive platform to spread that message. Katie looked at those two scenarios and said, yep, totally equivalent. This is what happens when you have no actual principles. When your entire worldview is just defend my team, attack their team, you end up defending Nazis on television while claiming you're the victim of antisemitism. The irony is suffocating. Katie and her husband have built careers weaponizing anti-Semitism accusations against anyone who criticizes Israeli government policy or their political positions. But when it comes to actual Nazi sympathizers getting mainstream platforms, suddenly it's about free speech and fairness. Abby Phillip tried to explain, someone criticizing Stephen Miller is offering an opinion about his policies, while Fuentes is literally expressing admiration for Nazis. One is political commentary. The other is hate speech and genocide advocacy. Katie kept insisting it was the same equitable comparison, as if stringing together formal-sounding words would make her argument less insane. You could see her media career evaporating in real time. This isn't a gaffe. This is Katie Miller showing everyone exactly who she is, someone so addicted to power that she'll defend literal Nazi sympathizers if it means scoring points against CNN. From Venezuela to Hitler, she managed to take the worst possible position on everything, defended it with unearned confidence, and then played victim when called her out. That's a masterclass in how to destroy your own career in 8 minutes on live television. Here's why Katie Miller will never make it as a media personality. Good communication requires you to actually believe in something beyond power. You need to explain your positions. You need to handle pushback without melting down. You need to engage with opposing arguments in good faith. But Katie can't do any of that. Her entire career has been about attaching herself to powerful people and doing their bidding. She never had to justify the cruelty. The cruelty was the point. She openly admitted that putting kids in cages was designed to shock people. When DHS sent her to the border to make her more compassionate, she said it didn't work. She learned communication from Stephen Miller, a man who sounds like he's having a panic attack every time he speaks. They both talk fast and loud because if they slow down, people might realize they're completely full of shit. When you only value power, you can't defend ideas, you can only attack people. You can't persuade anyone, you can only threaten consequences. You can't engage in debate, you can only melt down. That's why her CNN appearance ended with her defending a Nazi sympathizer's platform while claiming she's the victim of anti-Semitism. There's no actual thought process happening, just pure reactive defensiveness in service of power. So no, Katie, the podcast thing isn't going to work out. Your media career is dead on arrival, and you killed it yourself. America already has one Miller ruining dinner conversations with their opinions. We don't need a second one. You and Stephen reportedly don't go out in public anymore because you get harassed everywhere. So at least you'll have plenty of time to record those podcast episodes that literally nobody asked for. You can sit in your MAGA bubble, talking about how persecuted you are, how unfair the media is, how everyone else is the problem. But the rest of us see exactly what's happening. Someone who spent their entire life chasing power instead of principles, shocked that you can't build a media career on cruelty and defensiveness alone. Enjoy screaming into the void together. It's what you've earned.